uh, I was in and out of consciousness for quite a long period of time, and my thinking was very, disorganized, and not really fully conscious. And the pain was just overwhelming. It just kind of like knocked me back out again, sort of. And the light above me wasn't all that bright, but it was painful to look at for some reason, in the condition I was in. But I could hear the sounds of movement around me, and I finally remembered the incident in the woods, and I figured out, well, maybe I was hurt and I was taken to a hospital. Yeah, that's where I'm at. I was in the hospital. So I'm hearing the sounds of movement around me, and I'm thinking it's the doctors, and I could feel this instrument or this thing laying on my chest, and I could see that it was about 3 or 4 inches thick and curved across my chest. And so I figured I better lay still and cooperate with the doctors, not cause any problems, because I was in a lot of pain and I was very concerned about what had happened to me. I could my eyes weren't focusing very good, but I could see the vague, blurry forms of the doctors around me. But when I finally got where I could clear my eyes and clear my vision and see, is when I saw these creatures standing over me, and I just flipped out. I just became hysterical. My mind was just racing at the same time. My body just wouldn't work. I tried to just spring away from them, but I was so weakened that when I lashed out at him, the one that was there to the side of me, it was more of a push than a hit. He just kind of fell back into the other one. And when I got up, this thing that was lying across my chest fell off. And they come around the table towards me, and I was just sort of staggered back away from them against the back wall. There was a bench there I leaned against. And as they came towards me, I grabbed for something to fend them off with. And I picked up a long, thin object, a clear glass or plastic tube or rod or something, and tried to break the end of it off, and it wouldn't break. So I just held it in a threatening way and struck at them. They weren't close enough for me to hit, but I was just making threatening motions to keep them away. I was screaming at them, "Stay away, stay away!" And they stopped, and they just sort of all at once turned and left the room. And I was pumping out all this adrenaline, trying to get my body to move, and I was not having a lot of response. Everything seemed sluggish, and I was very weak, and I was having a lot of trouble breathing, and I just couldn't catch my breath. But when they left the room, they had gone out the hallway at the back and turned right, and that was the only doorway out of there. I was afraid they would return, and so I went out of the same door, but I turned left. And this wasn't big; it was very cramped. The ceiling was just way down low, and the passage was very narrow, and it was dimly lit. And my panic was really, really aggravated by the fact that I couldn't catch my breath, and I felt like I was suffocating all the time. And I took off in a run because afraid of what was behind me, but the passageway curved so tightly to the right that I was torn between not being able to see if anything was coming up behind me and not being able to see if I was running into something worse. But I finally got a grip on myself, and I looked into a room that was empty of any creatures or beings or anything, and I saw the outline of what I took to be doorways on the opposite side that I thought might be an escape. And after piecing together the layout of what I'd traveled through, in this diagram here, I can see that it was a foolish thought to think that those were a way out, but that's what I was thinking at the time, which I wasn't thinking very clearly. It was just kind of a panicked, desperate, try anything sort of approach. And But when I moved into this room, there was a chair in there, and this chair had its back to me, and I thought there might be somebody sitting in it, so I moved around to the side along the wall before I moved into the room more, when I could see that there was no one sitting in the chair. But as I moved into the center of the room, it darkened, and I stepped back, and it lightened again. I could see the walls, but when I got close to the center, it got very dark, and I could see points of light, like a planetarium or some sort of viewing method of star pattern. There was some controls on the arm of this chair, and I was attempting to open doors or see if I could. At one point I went over to these doorways, these outlines on the wall, and there was no light visible through the crack and no air coming through, but I didn't find any buttons or any way to open the door. So I was thinking the buttons on this chair might open the door, which they didn't. Most of the buttons didn't seem to do anything. Some of them would make those lines on the screen change. They weren't like characters, numbers, or letters. They were just long, straight lines with little segments on them at different angles. And sometimes they would move and change angles, but a lot of times they just didn't do anything. When I moved the lever, the star pattern moved. Not the points of light in relation to each other, but the entire pattern moved. And that was very disorienting because it was, kind of like my whole frame of reference, was shifting. It was sort of a dizzying sort of feeling. I thought I might be really making things worse doing that. But at this point, I sensed, or I don't know if I heard something or if there was a change in light, but the doorway that I came through, what I took to be a man appeared, and I thought he was like from the Air Force or somebody, that was there to rescue me. And so I went up to him and I started, battling all these questions at him, and he didn't answer me. And I thought, well, maybe it's because he was wearing this helmet, and he either couldn't hear me or couldn't speak with it on. So when he wanted me to go with him, I went. He took me out of this craft into this large enclosure. It was a large room shaped like a quarter of a cylinder, turned on its side. And as soon as I got out of there, it seemed like the air was a lot fresher and easier to breathe, although the pain was still pretty much there. The light was much brighter. Sort of hurt my eyes a little bit at first, but it was kind of like sunlight coming through from these panels. I don't know if they were artificial lights or just translucent panels on the wall that you see in this picture. It just curved over into the ceiling. It was a quarter of a cylinder. I tried to look around. There were some other disc-shaped objects, machines in this, but he seemed to be in a really big hurry and moved me out of this room, down the hallway to another room. And there were some other people in there, and he left me with them. And I thought, well, because they're not wearing helmets, I'm going to try these questions again. And so I started in with all the same questions again. Where am I? What's going on here? I want out of here. I want to go home. But they didn't answer either. They started leading me over to this table, and then I was having a lot of serious misgivings about whether was I rescued or was this out of the frying pan into the fire. And so I started to resist them. I was still very weak, and there was 3 of them, and they were much stronger than I am. And they managed to get me on the table. They pushed me down, and one of them, a woman, had a mask in her hand that she put over my face. I managed with a great deal of effort to get one hand free and get it under the edge of the mask, and I started to pull it away when I lost consciousness. I blacked out instantly, and I didn't remember anything more until I woke up. Lying face down beside a highway. It was cold. I came to very quickly. There was a light from above, and it caught my attention, and as I turned to look to see where the light was coming from, it went off. So I don't know whether it was a light on the bottom of this craft or a hatch closing, but I just saw in the dark the shiny chrome polished like curving hull there for just a few seconds, and then it just shot straight up into the sky. And it moved so quickly. It stirred the air, it moved the tree and the leaves in the grass beside the road, but I didn't, you'd think it would just make a shrieking sound, like a bullet moving through the air or something. It moved so quickly it was out of sight. But maybe that was just partly because it wasn't lit. Anyway, I recognized this stretch of road. I saw the lights of the town down below, and I don't know where I got the strength, because when I got to my feet I was so wobbly. But with the last of my strength I ran down into the town, and I went across the first bridge, and there was a building with lights on there and smoke coming out of the chimney, and I went and beat on the door, and nobody came. So I ran down on across the second bridge, and I came to a service station there, and there was a row of telephone booths there. I went into the first one, and it was out of order. So I was at the end of my rope there, but I went into the next phone booth and managed to call my family. And at that time, in that part of the country, you didn't even have to have a coin to talk to the operator. Come to find out later, the operator listened in on the phone call and tipped off the law enforcement that the call had been made, which, although that's illegal, it was actually a fortunate thing at the time to verify, that what was being said was true. But my family came and got me, and the sheriff's deputies that were sent out to there must have missed us by seconds, but they did know that the call came from there, contrary to many theories the skeptics had to offer. At that time, I did not realize how much time had gone by. This 4-day search, there was 5 days and 6 hours missing, and I only recalled such a short period of time. I thought it was the same night. And somehow in the conversation, I was trying to get out what had happened to me, and I just kept breaking down. I just couldn't say it without, I was in pretty bad shape, but my brother, when he picked up on this time thing, he said, "Feel your face," and I felt, and I had, a week's growth, and I looked at my watch, the date had changed, and I knew how much time had gone by. It was quite a shock, and I just sort of went catatonic at that point, but he got me back to town, and I found out all the stuff that had been going on in my absence, that there had been news media from all over the world coming through town. It was just a mob scene. It was just crazy. And the family had received a lot of phone calls. There was a nurse saying that she had